Hi, folks. Welcome to the eighth, I think, videocast and the 60-something podcast. Today, we're going to discuss the letter that Rape Crisis Scotland published from the accusers in the Alex Salmond case. We're going to have a wee chat about the Mayor of New York and his position. What was the other one? There was something else, but it'll no doubt come out in the wash. Jimmy, you've got a bee in your bonnet about the National publishing this letter from Alex Salmond's accusers.
Well, let's be honest, straight away, they're not accusers. They're failed accusers. They lost their case. I think the letter's sour grapes. I think it's just another attempt to fling some mud, whilst at the same time keeping their hands clean, because none of them signed it. None of them came forward. And I was a bit annoyed that the National stuck it on their front page, because basically for an independent supporting paper to jump into the sandpit with every unionist paper that was going to put it on their front page, I thought was just a silly move. They could have had it in page 3, page 5, wherever they wanted to put it. Didn't need to be on the front of the newspaper.
Stuart.
I think the topic is that we should be talking about is actually the content of that letter. The fact that there was a banner on the top of the National front page, the letter wasn't on the front page, there was a banner. It's neither here nor there. I would, as a Yes supporter and a supporter of Alex Salmond, and I would expect the National to certainly lead on that very important letter.
Okay, so I think it's unfortunate. I think it could have been approached in a different way by the National. I think what we're seeing now is the people who accused Alex Salmond, who is now, according to the courts, a totally innocent man, girding their loins. I noticed that the Times had a video of Alex Salmond's QC discussing the case on the train. I don't think it said anywhere who he was discussing it with. I don't know if it was a member of his legal team he was discussing it with. And whoever was eavesdropping and prepared to hand out the video that apparently named two of the accusers should be in trouble for it.
I would imagine some legal proceedings should and would follow.
Well, there was also another piece basically saying they smoke without fire. I await the criticism of the judge in the case, and I'm looking forward to the sun getting hauled over the coals when it identifies jury members and starts asking for their opinion.
I mean, you think about it. Let me sum it up. It was a female judge, a majority of women on the jury, and they made a decision. And there were the police interviewed something like nearly 400 possible witnesses. 390 said they had nothing. They didn't have anything to say bad about the man, and there were 6 or 8 defense witnesses turned up and said he was an innocent man. So excuse me, how much evidence do you need to say the man is innocent?
Well, I think what it underlines. I think what it underlines is this has now become political. It's not. It doesn't matter that the man's been found not guilty. It's now a degree, and I really want you to think. I was thinking about this yesterday. You don't want to go kissing anybody on the cheek. You don't want to go to a busy pub. You need to introduce snug bars, not for women, for men. Because if you brush past somebody in a pub, according to what's come out so far about the trial, that can be considered sexual assault.
Yeah, and also according to Rape Crisis Scotland, publicly funded as far as I understand, or certainly they get a lot of public funding, they've now chosen to take a side, and they're taking the side of I'll say it, women who were lying, women who conspired to bring a failed case to court.
Women
not all of them, but certainly there were 4 or 5 that were on that WhatsApp group chat discussing how they were going to get a conviction.
Well, let's call them women who brought insufficient evidence into the court.
It's a failed case. I mean, there you go. There's every chance that not only is it political, that people are covering their ass now, mate. People in the Procurator Fiscal's office and people in Police Scotland are releasing certain tidbits to journalists in order to justify the positions they took prior to and during the trial.
Look, let's bring somebody else's name into this. Tommy Sheridan case. Now, what about happened there? In the end, it was a civil case, sued. Oh, no, it was perjury, wasn't it? They proved. Well, is there possible perjury cases? Are there possible civil cases? I think we need to be careful, but I honestly, plus, right from the start, look what these people have done to the independence cause.
True, but I'm sorry, had Alex Salmond been found guilty of anything, it would have enhanced the independence cause as far as I'm concerned. Just as the very fact he went to court, the very fact that it was allowed to go through, that the civil service were allowed their investigation, that there was no interference, enhances the position of the SNP. That's my opinion.
It certainly enhances the judicial system in Scotland, and it shows it to be an open system in which I think the police acted in a manner unbecoming, shall we say, of police officers, in that they trawled and they searched and they went back 10 years to try and find anything whatsoever, because they knew that this case would come down to Murov doctrine and whether or not they could establish a pattern of behaviour that Alex Salmond was a sexual predator. They never. What they established was a pattern of behaviour that when Alec had a drink, he was an asshole. That's the only thing that was established in that trial, as far as I
know. No. One other thing was established, that these women are conspirators.
Aye. We've not got the evidence to. Well, we know they are conspirators, but we've not quite seen all the evidence to make it plain. Perhaps this is why this is all coming out now, before the WhatsApp messages all get published.
Let me put it this way. We don't know that they were conspirators because we haven't seen the evidence. And the evidence wasn't produced in court. So we don't know that. Okay? I mean, they could have been talking about anything. If they're that close a group, wait a minute, Stuart. If they're that close a group, they could have been talking about a fundraising event. Until we see what they were talking about, we can't call them conspirators. Sorry.
Right. Well, they conspired together to write this letter.
They chose to write a letter and not put their name to it, which is
even worse.
Well, it's been described as an open letter.
Open letter.
And I'm sorry, I could write a letter and not put my name to it about anything I choose. Jesus Christ, Jimmy. You've been in the gulag for the weekend.
I thought I'd shock you, mate. Nah, I just got bored and decided to get the razor out this morning.
All right.
Very good. Just don't forget the sun. It's a very dangerous sun. Stay out of the sun.
To get back to the subject, if they're going to claim this wasn't political before the trial, during the trial, they are certainly losing that position now.
Yeah, that's true.
This is now political. Totally, absolutely, 100%. To ignore the verdict the way they've been doing it.
They still want to achieve their aim, Norrie. They still want to achieve their aim in making sure that Mr. Salmond does not return to frontline politics. To be honest, I think they've probably done that. I think he's of an age now, and having gone through this, where he'll probably say, you know what, there's my book, I've had enough, and stand back in the sidelines and watch and play puppet master rather than actually getting himself an elected position again.
Stuart?
Look, it's worse than it's worse than that. We're talking about careerists here. We're talking about the kind of people that moved in and took over the party during and following the 2014 referendum. We now have a party that seems to be in the control of all kinds of people that don't seem to see that independence is the point of the party. They want to promote their extreme feminist views and their extreme whatever. Don't forget there will be spies amongst that group. Spies from MI5 or somewhere like that within that group promoting it.
I don't agree with you.
Encouraging it.
I don't agree with you because I don't know. I don't know who they are, so I'm not prepared to say that they're careerists. I don't know how long they've been involved with the SNP or the independence cause, so I can't make a judgment on that. And that is one of the problems with them remaining anonymous.
Yeah,
I could go and find out who they are because it seems to be common knowledge amongst journalists in Scotland, but I'm not going to do that. Well, I'm not going to do that because if it really does annoy me, I'll end up getting myself jailed.
Right, you'll see some.
But until one of them has the courage to step out from the shadows, I'm not going to treat anything that comes out of their camp with any more seriousness than I do Donald Trump.
Well, Parliament's back this week, isn't it? It's got Holyrood's back this week sitting, I believe.
Just for a day.
Just for a day.
1 day.
Right. I would assume that somebody in the opposition parties will stand up and insist now that the parliamentary investigations into all of this are constituted and ready to hit the ground running the minute that Parliament's sitting 2 or 3 days a week again.
I don't know if it's been suspended. It might be ongoing. I mean, that's the problem with the situation is, and it was always going to be a problem. It didn't matter whether Salmond went to jail or not. There are too many branches to be broken here. Nicola Sturgeon is going to be attacked because of her allowing it to go ahead, interfering with it going ahead, not knowing or knowing. It doesn't matter what her position actually genuinely was. She'll be attacked on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Salmond will continue to get smeared with the no smoke without fire. That's going to keep happening. If they let him back into the SNP, there's going to be problems. If they don't let him back into the SNP, there's going to be problems. This has worked.
It's worked to an extent.
If it was meant to be a way to undermine the SNP, it's worked.
Yeah, but let's be honest, Norrie, it's worked to an extent. The panel-based poll this morning blows out the water any chance that it was actually going to really damage the Scottish National Party. They're sitting at 51% for next year's election and 48% in the region.
What would they be sitting at without it?
I didn't think it's had any iota, mate. 51% is a big number for the SNP to be sat at a year away from an election.
Well, Stuart?
No, I agree with Jimmy on that one. I did notice that. So they were predicted to get 70 out of 129 seats, or 128 seats at Holyrood. It's phenomenal. But then that's a big yes movement that are holding their breath and holding their nose rather than their breath. Sorry, holding their nose about the Salmond Sturgeon affair. And that annoys me. I'm sorry, it really does annoy me that it's described in the gutter press as a Salmond scandal. It's a Salmond Sturgeon scandal because I'm sure Sturgeon would have been capable of shutting it down before it ever got going.
Yeah,
if she shut it down, she would have been in more trouble.
I mean, this was a no-win situation for Sturgeon.
Once it came out, it was.
If she'd been able to look at the evidence and say, "Don't be ridiculous," and all that could only have been with the civil service, there would have been accusations of favoritism. She had to let it go. Salmond did the right thing, blowing it out of the water because it was an unfair inquiry.
Oh, is that the internal investigation you're talking about?
That's the only thing she could have had any jurisdiction over whatsoever. And I don't believe that legally she has. She can't touch the courts.
Look at the email. Look at the email the Permanent Secretary, Leslie Evans, published. Well, we lost the battle, but we can win the war. I mean, if that is not prejudicial, what is it?
Well,
that's public, by the way. It's not me just making that up.
Yeah, no, I saw it.
It'll be interesting to see what comes out because Leslie Evans is probably we discussed this before. Leslie Evans has probably got her contract extended so that, one, she can't walk away with a nice big wad of money and then not be investigated. By extending her contract to 2023, she has to be involved in all the investigations. And there's every chance as well that if the First Minister or those close to the First Minister were involved in any kind of plot, there's every chance that Evans is where the buck will stop.
All right, but we've got to ask the simple question. Who gains from this entire scandal? We know who gains. The establishment in London.
Well, it's certainly not anybody in the SNP.
No.
So the question then is, how, I mean, I'm making a presumption here that the evidence presented in court was, all the evidence there was as accurate as the reporting I saw. In which case, half of what was brought up in court scares me, because as I say, you can't kiss a woman on the cheek in case she turns her head and you end up smacking her in the lips. You know, so where does that put ordinary guys?
Well, excuse me, let me go back when I used to go to pubs, steamy pubs on a Friday and Saturday night, and they're busy and you're squeezing in to get in, and there's, you know, the back of a very good friend, male or female. You might pinch them on the bum, male or female, just the way we used to be, very tactile.
That's now the problem. You know, you need definitions. You know, every laddie in a school playground has tugged the girl's hair at some point.
Pinged the bra strap. That was the thing when I was at school. Have you pinged a lassie's bra strap yet?
Certainly not.
Getting into it in too much detail, guys. We're getting bogged down. The bottom line here is that there's a lot more to come of this. And unfortunately, from this morning, we can see that the press are just going to keep slinging mud in the hope that they can cause some kind of shitstorm.
Is there an answer? There's a question for you.
Just got to let it play out and go and win the election next year regardless.
The only thing I can see that would be helpful, and it doesn't sit well with what I know about Alex Salmond, is that he shuts up. He goes and self-isolates until after the elections next year.
Not going to do that, mate.
I can't see it.
Let's be clear. We don't know who these women are. We don't know if they're still in position. We do know that some of them were pretty high up in the SNP. Are they still in position? We don't know. And if they are, there's no danger that Alex Salmond's going to let them remain in position. He's going to want their heads.
We don't know who they are. That's the bottom line. Okay, guys, enough of that. Let's go international. Stuart, you've got something to say about the mayor of New York.
Well, yes. I kind of do a lot of comparative research and investigation about this whole COVID-19 crisis, because I don't believe half of what I'm being told by almost any public official in this country. You, Norrie, took part in emergency exercises. I took part as a young man in emergency exercises to do with nuclear attacks. One of the first things that you're taught about is not to scare the horses. Everything you do and everything you announce is you mustn't scare the public. And unfortunately, sometimes you sit here and you watch what's been spouted from, you know, Edinburgh and London, in particular. You know, this is what matters to us, is not always, it can be contradicted by looking abroad. Every day I look at Irish news from Dublin, because that's very similar to what's happening here. And in fact, when you think about it, why are the Northern Irish executive lining up their regulations with the UK when they're on a different island, and it really matters what happens in there? But also America. And the governor of New York State, I forget his first name, but Governor Cuomo, for the last couple of days, he's asked brutal questions. And he's talking about, for example, they need 30,000 ventilators. They need to be able to test everybody. Now, there you go. There's another thing. Tony Blair was on TV earlier on this morning saying, in the end, they're going to have to test everybody in the country in the long term, because this ain't going away next week. But 30,000 ventilators. Right now, Scotland's got 380, and they're talking about having a capacity for 4 times that many. Now, the thing about this ventilator thing is this is the only, it's not a cure, the only treatment that seriously ill, COVID virus seriously ill patients can use to save their lives. But the second thing that everybody needs to know is most people that go on a ventilator are on a ventilator in the hospital for 3 to 4 days. If you've got COVID-19, the minimum to be on a ventilator is 14 days. So the average, and it's 14 to 21 days. So the average is about 16 days. That's 4 times longer. So you multiply the amount of ventilators you need per patient, if it's a COVID patient, by 4, and then by 4 again.
So your point is that Scotland is not reacting like New York.
No. And my point is, you've got to accept that the spokespeople for the Scottish Health Service, which includes the First Minister and Jason Leach, who's a very good communicator, they don't want to scare the horses because that's part of the deal. If they say something that's different from London, that's going to that'll scare the horses. So we're not. We're not getting the truth. If you look abroad, the truth is very, very different.
Right. Okay, let's look at New York and see what the difference is. First difference, and I would suggest most important difference, is they don't have a National Health Service. Yeah?
Yeah.
We have a totally different health setup to New York.
So we won't need ventilators.
We'll need ventilators, but we have a totally different setup. We have a National Health Service. People, hopefully, will be found, the ones in need will be found quicker and looked after quicker.
I hope so. It concludes you and me.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, Stuart, unless you want to issue every single person in Scotland with a ventilator, you're never going to know how many ventilators you know, depending on what hits us.
Guys, it's not just about the machines.
True.
You can't just bloody plug a ventilator in and know what you're doing with it. With specialist support, we've doubled ICU beds. We're looking to quadruple them by the end of next week. And we're not using half of the capacity we've got at the minute. I think relatively speaking, we're relatively well prepared, in particular in proportion to England. What's going on in New York? They're getting hammered with it. They're getting hit a lot harder, not just by numbers, but by the speed and the progression with which this thing is running through their population.
Jimmy, can I just challenge you on one assumption? No, I've got to challenge you on one assumption here that just occurred to me this morning. It's all very well us comparing the situation here in Scotland to the situation in England. Over the last couple of days, the Germans have flown dozens, if not hundreds of seriously ill COVID patients from Italy to Germany, because Germany is well ahead of the curve in handling this whole crisis. You're forgetting, is Scotland going to turn their nose up at overflow seriously ill patients from England if Scotland's doing very well?
No, of course they'll ship them up here. Of course they'll ship them up here. If London doesn't cope, they'll ship them to London, to Birmingham first, then Manchester, then here. That's why we looked at the SECC. As far as our healthcare professionals are concerned, the way our curve's going, we wouldn't need the SECC.
I take it what you're suggesting here, Stuart, is that the Scottish Health Service refuses to take patients from out with Scotland.
Of course not.
Well,
the Germans were taking patients from Italy. Why wouldn't the Scots take patients from England?
Right.
So the point of that is you can't define. There's little point looking at any. Let's say we all feel very comfortable today because there was only one extra death in Scotland, and the number of tested people with COVID-19 in Scotland only went up by 10%, which are both quite interesting figures. But there's no comfort in that because the reality is we live on the same island. We are thick as thieves with England. We're not going to turn back seriously ill patients who need ICU beds if we've got them. Spare, I mean.
Right. And nor would I expect us to. However, I would expect us to be able to cope with our own population, as well as any overspill from other parts of the UK.
Well, we are behind the curve compared to London.
Yeah. And I've no doubt meetings at Cobra have discussed this.
Yes, that's what I would imagine they would.
And I would imagine, unless they're really stupid, that that's been factored into their planning. I mean, I'm not for a minute suggesting that we're going to have every piece of equipment we need to cover every eventuality, because everybody in the world is looking for ventilators.
So you know something else they're looking for?
There's going to be a shortage.
You know something else they're all looking for? And I guarantee there aren't enough of them. Beds. When are they going to... Oh, there's a secret factory somewhere in the middle of Siberia with 1 million beds ready for all these emergency hospitals. I don't think so.
Oh, I'm sure IKEA can help them out. Oh, you're laughing. You're talking about hospital beds that fold and spin and
exactly.
Well, you didn't need them if it gets to an emergency. That's not what they're putting in doing in that bloody Excel Centre or whatever it is at Docklands in London.
What are they putting in down there? Cots?
Cots, aye. Just a daft single bed that sits at a certain height so that all the other equipment can go round a bit.
Did you see?
But they need oxygen. They need staff.
They've got oxygen. They've got more oxygen than a horse can shit in this country.
What they're doing at the moment down south in the whatever centre it is they're craning in big oxygen tanks and piping it in to the exhibition centre so they can link up at the beds. Mm-hmm. That's what the planning's about. That's what they're doing. You know, they're not creating a big hall with beds in it. They're creating a hospital environment with what's needed to deal with coronavirus patients. You know, it's not just a big shed for people to go and die in.
I think the bigger issue is that London and Birmingham might very well not cope, given the numbers that are happening there at the moment. And there then does become an issue about shipping seriously ill people around the country. I'm not saying you knock them back either, but I'm saying that you would hope that we're not getting
I would imagine
virus trains running about.
I would imagine they wouldn't be moving too many seriously ill coronavirus patients. I would imagine if there's an overspill, it will be other patients.
Yeah, but right now, Norrie, when we're getting to them, a considerable percentage of them are already seriously ill. You know,
well, look, have you
the
seen
death rate in the ICUs is 50%, which is horrific. Mm-hmm. Once they get to an ICU, only half of them are surviving.
Stuart,
have you seen the planes that the Germans are flying the patients from Italy? They're great, big, wide-body planes, and they've got dozens of people on beds. Now, they're not going to mix up COVID-19 patients with ordinary patients. They're going to be all COVID-19 patients in one flight, aren't they? But I don't know how many they're flying in a flight. Could be 60 or something.
I would imagine it depends what they need. But I would think the last thing you would want to be doing is moving seriously ill ventilated patients. I would imagine that the first thing they'll do is free up space in the hospitals for COVID patients.
We're more liable to get, Norrie, as people that don't have COVID.
People that need an ICU bed, but you know,
but aren't
can
infected with
be
that virus.
moved.
Aye.
I mean, I don't know the practicalities of it, so it's a bit. I'm kind of speculating.
No, well, just remember the fact that it's 2 to 3. If it's a serious case of COVID-19, it's 2 to 3 weeks in an ICU bed.
Yeah, which was mentioned at today's press conference.
Yeah, there's other interesting figures that aren't being discussed, mate. I mean, somebody put out there yesterday that per capita, the death rate in Scotland is a third of what it is in England. Why is that? It's not getting discussed at all. And by the way, you didn't see our CMO doing that. She's busy patting us on back like we're dogs for staying in the house. She's starting to get right on my thrupneys.
Your first question is because we're 400 miles from London. Basically, it's not here yet. And who knows? We might have been lucky enough to have started the isolation that bit sooner and therefore have less of a peak. We won't know for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, until the figures come out, until hopefully that peak starts to drop.
Yeah.
But I think it's impossible to criticise either Boris Johnson or the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon.
Really?
And we won't be able to really know what mistakes were made, what things were done right, until we're...
Oh, Norrie, you're sounding like Michael Gove, pal. Did you see him this morning? It's time to look forwards, not backwards. In other words, we're tired of answering these difficult, or not answering these difficult questions you keep asking us about why we wait so long to do this, that, or the next thing. So please go and ask us something about what we're actually doing next week, rather than ask us something about 3 weeks ago when we were sitting twiddling our thumbs and trying to get them up our butt at the same time.
Well, I'm not saying stop asking questions, and I'm not saying criticise whatever you want to criticise. What I am saying is the facts will not be known until, well, they'll start getting decent data in what, 3-4 weeks?
No. We should have decent data by next Monday. At that point, we've been on lockdown for 2 weeks.
Well, they're saying
data by then.
The health woman today, I noticed that actually because Nicola Sturgeon said about a week, and she said 2 to 3 weeks. I'll go with her. She's the expert.
Yeah, but she's getting on my thrupneys, mate. She's just she's for a doctor. She's a damn fine politician.
Jimmy,
she covers every base at all times.
Jimmy, I want you to know how grateful Stuart and I are that you've self-isolated. Consider that a pat in your head.
Barry.
Look, I think Jimmy's got a wonderful lexicon of alternative words to swear words. They just roll off his tongue. Thrupney was one. I can't remember hearing that one. No, that's brilliant. You know, he never swears.
Thrupney bits.
I tried desperately not to, because once I start, it becomes stream of consciousness, and it just sounds like a sweary Ulysses.
Well,
have you been forced in the past in a job or something or other to not swear, and therefore this is why you've got such a long list of alternatives?
I've kind of been at it since I went to primary school, mate, because I was swearing long before I went to primary school, and you tended to get scalped back then. So,
have we anything else we want to discuss?
It's a sunny day.
It's Gordon Brewer was being very nice to Mr. Leach today. He didn't interrupt him hardly at all.
It's very amazing when he's actually talking to somebody who's not a politician, how pleasant he can be.
Oh, I think I'd be a bit more specific than that. When he's talking to somebody who isn't an SNP politician, I think is still accurate. Oh, Brewer does my head in. As I say,
I think he does everybody's head in.
I didn't have to throw anything at the telly today, so he must have been reasonable.
Yeah.
So, nothing else come up? Nothing else caught your eye? No? Okay.
Not really. No.
We'll call it a day at that then, guys. Thanks, Stuart Lockhead. Thanks, Jimmy Hutton. I'm Norrie Stewart. And as I say, you've got the video cast, and the soundtrack will be put out as a podcast. Hope you enjoyed watching / listening. And we'll catch you, no doubt, tomorrow. Cheers for now, folks.